Hello everybody. Welcome to another learning session of Unreal Engine 4, where my friend Strange Bro Jim and I are learning how to use the Unreal Engine. Right now we are still trying to finish up the working with audio. Hopefully that would be today when we finish working with audio, and we can move on to the next segment of the documentation to at least have an idea of how audio works on Unreal. Right now I'm just waiting on him. I think he's almost ready, so just do a little quick sellout and they'll be joining him on his stage. So down in the description below there's a link to the Power Shop, where you can purchase energy mixes, leap mixes, hydration, and even shakers and even stickers. If you use creator code BLACKHEART, you will get a 10% discount and it helps support the channel in the process. Now, let's hop on over to Jim's stage. Hopefully it's already open. Yeah, it's open. Got the desktop audio on. Let's see. Let me get the documentation already up on the screen, which hopefully is the right thing being visible right now. Yep, it is. Last time we finished up attenuation, and they were supposedly going to start with sound cue editor.
Let's get into this.
We don't know how much the UI. I think we're gonna skip. I think I should be able to hear him.
Oh,
then there's some cue reference, of which I don't know if we're going to cover it or how much of it we're going to cover. I don't know.
Go and
the other part is relatively short.
Okay, it's not even showing. Well, okay, here we go. 1 second there, folks. It doesn't seem to be wanting to show.
He's having some technical difficulties.
Web page, there we go, finally. Okay, welcome back to another Unreal study session. I'm your host, Strange Bro Jim, and we're going to be joined with Blackheart. I see him already in the stage. I apologize there, Blackheart, for running a little late.
Not a problem there. I was almost late myself.
We finished off the sound attenuation last time. We covered through everything, and boy, was it a fairly lengthy process there, folks. There was a lot of information that was kind of given to us about it, but you know, we got through it. We are now on the sound cue editor, which the editor itself does not appear to be very vast. It might, you know, we might be able to, you know, we should be able to get through this entire page easily enough. The sound cue editor UI, however, is filled with a lot of specific keywords and the like, and it's not even something that is really that useful overall. It just says, hey, the visual logger. Well, guess what? It brings up the visual logger in a separate window, and it's like, that tells me nothing about what the visual logger is all about. So it's
that's why I think UI we're gonna skip.
In some ways, it's really not that useful.
Hopefully, it's good.
I mean, there might be some tiny parts to it that might be useful for the most part, but most likely we're going to be going ahead and skipping the sound cue editor UI portion of the with, you know, working with audio here. So we might just go straight to the sound cue reference after that. So but that's enough of me talking. Let me go ahead and get Blackheart in so he's not twiddling his thumbs going, when are you gonna invite me in there, Jim?
I'm not.
Let me get him in.
Hello there, Jim. How you doing?
Okay there, bud. How about yourself?
I'm okay.
Yeah, are you all boiling pretty much there, or?
Yeah, it is a bit hot. Well, then again, Argentina right now is hot in two ways: the temperature and the madness that's happening over by the capital and on different parts of the world, actually. Even
Mm,
I
indeed.
don't know if the news over
Indeed.
there cover anything of it.
Well, the as much as I'd like to say that United States gets a lot of their is informed by everything that's going around the world, it doesn't often. So,
No, wouldn't surprise me if
and
they
I
mention
don't
anything
really.
happening at the Argentinian embassy or anything like that.
What's that?
I wouldn't surprise me if they mention anything about the Argentinian embassy. Because in different parts
No,
of the world,
nothing.
though, the embassies
I
of
haven't.
Argentina are being like overrun by angry Argentinians.
Oh, okay.
And
No,
they
I
even
did
showed
not hear.
Rome was like overwhelmed by Argentinian protesters over in Rome.
Oh, okay.
Yep, things are pretty
No,
bad. They're heated up in another way as well.
okay. Well, I hope everything goes okay for you there, bud.
Oh, I'm hoping it
Obviously,
does.
keep me informed. Obviously, don't, if
Yeah,
things start,
like right now, long
um,
story short, if at least half of the things the current president is trying to push, then our nation is pretty much dead. It's gonna take
mm,
away so many rights from us. We're looking at about over 300 laws would be abolished. Not to mention the cops are
gotcha,
gonna be allowed to be trigger happy.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, um, I wish you luck in this. Really wish I could help you out more.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
It's chaos here
you
right
know,
now.
yeah. Well, let me know. I know that I can't do much
I
right
know.
now,
I know.
but
Don't worry.
let me know if there's if the, even if you need me to like come online and have you need someone to talk with. Let me know. Reach out to me, okay?
Yeah, don't worry.
Um, so okay. Well, shall we continue on with our sound cue editor?
Yep.
Okay. So the sound cue editor is a guide to using the tools available for setting up and editing sound cue node-based audio assets. Okay. Um, they really haven't covered much about what sound cues are, to at least to a reasonable degree that I know of. Um, I don't know if you feel differently about that yourself there, Blackheart, but
No, the overview was pretty vague on this. So hopefully we get some answers of what exactly the sound cue is. I can only theorize, but
yeah,
let's hope they cover it
yeah,
properly.
yeah, I don't know. If they don't cover it in the editor here, then maybe we'll get more in the sound cue reference. Otherwise, I mean,
We'll
this is
have to
this is going to be
experiment
the
though.
end. This this is going to be the end of our um, working with sound. Okay,
Yeah.
just letting people know. Okay. Um, the next portion that I have on my list of things that we need to kind of cover is artificial intelligence. That's the next one that we're going to be kind of looking at and studying a little bit, seeing if they have any tools associated with that. Which, I mean, I'm kind of doing like a little bit of an overview here, and I'm not really seeing much. Maybe it'll be like under programming and scripting.
Maybe.
Um,
Or
for
maybe
the
blueprints.
AI. Um, but at the very least, if, if anything, I will kind of talking about artificial intelligence myself. Using information that I learned when I studied artificial intelligence back in college. A lot of it might be outdated, and there might be some things that uh, might need revision. You know, but we'll get to that. But uh, so yeah. The behavior of audio playback in the Unreal Engine is defined within sound cues. Okay. The sound cue editor is a node-based editor that is used to work with audio. For more information, blah blah blah. Sound cue. The audio output of the combination of nodes created in the sound cue editor is saved as a sound cue. By default, every sound cue's audio graph node contains an output node, which has a speaker icon on it. The output node's default values volume multiplier is 0.75, and for pitch multiplier is 1. You can modify these values in the details panel. The volume and pitch settings are used to manage relative sound cue volumes. This affects the output of all audio contained within the sound cue. If you're using multiple sound waves with mixer and random nodes, you can control their volume and pitch independently by adding modulator nodes. Okay, that didn't really explain too much of what what a sound cue is, though, or at least it
No.
didn't feel like that.
No.
Uh, Once again, I'm kind of. It's not giving. It doesn't feel like it's giving me enough about, what what it's all about, kind of thing. Like, the sound mixer, I can kind of understand because you're trying to combine like multiple different sound files into one, mix of sounds all together, right?
Right.
And then you can kind of manipulate the, um, what sounds takes major priority. If you need to like change the pitch on any one of those particular sounds using mixer, you can kind of try to go about doing that. Blah blah blah, right? How is a sound cue different from a sound mixer? That's kind of my thought line about this. What is a sound cue? What is it all about? You know. So they're not really addressing that very well, or at least maybe I'm missing some keyword, or well, maybe not necessarily catch missing, because I'm obviously reading through it. Maybe I'm just not seeing what um, they're like, hey, here's the picture for you, but right now my viewpoint might be very focused on like one particular area and not really seeing like the large picture or something like that. I don't know. Um, so I I really wish that there was more there, but um,
Mm.
yeah. Moving on.
Yeah.
Okay. A sound wave is a representation of an imported audio file in the sound cue editor. You can select a sound wave asset in the content browser and add it to the sound cue you are editing by right-clicking anywhere in the sound cue editor, then choosing the sound wave in the From Selected category in the context menu. Because other sound cues may use the same sound wave, okay, you cannot modify the volume and pitch values of a sound wave in the sound cue editor. Okay. However, you can modify the sound wave's properties when you import it, or by opening it in the content browser by double-clicking it. Wait, what? Okay.
I'm guessing like it opens a mixer or something.
It,
I mean, if you look at the graph shown up in the example, there's one that says mixer inside the sound cue
yeah,
editor, so it could be something related to
yeah.
that.
Well, it looks as though the sound cue is kind of like maybe it's um like taking everything that's supposed to happen at one particular moment of time, and that's what the sound cue is all about. It takes the mixer that is like including all these different sounds into it, and then tries to output it all or something like that. But it's like, you know, I thought the mixer was already kind of doing that, so that's why I'm like, you know, um,
On the mixer, you can like mix sounds and even edit the sounds themselves by manipulating the wave, like with that whole low pass, high pass filter stuff. This is like putting the stuff into the sound cue, like using whatever audio
maybe
you just
maybe
made and
it's
putting it in there.
maybe they're maybe they're basically saying, hey, we don't need to mix anything, we don't really need to change anything around. We just want these sounds in there, and we want them to play at this particular moment of time, so we're gonna put it in the sound cue and let it go. Maybe it's doing that. Maybe there's like a little bit of overhead in the sound mixer because it's like having a lot of properties associated with it. So maybe they're like saying, hey, we don't really want to deal with all the mixer properties, so we're just gonna deal with it that way. But again, it doesn't really make much sense because as you said there, Blackheart, they have a mixer in the sound cue there, so you know what's the major difference here? Um, but
Mm,
the they're basically saying the sound wave is a representation of an imported audio file and the sound cue editor. You can select the sound wave asset in a content browser and click add the sound cue you're editing by right-clicking anywhere in the sound cue editor and choosing the sound wave from selected. Right? Because other sound cues may use the same sound wave, you cannot modify the volume and pitch values of the sound wave in the sound cue editor. Um, but wait, in the paragraph above, it says the volume and pitch settings are used to manage relative sound cue volumes.
well, maybe it's not individual. Maybe it's like generalized. Maybe you want to edit one individual part of the audio you just imported, but you can't do that. If you edit it in the sound cue, maybe you're editing all of it and not just one individual thing.
Maybe.
Maybe it's referring like you
But
want to edit there's only this one specific sound in the sound cue, but you can't do that in the sound cue. You have to like pop that out over to the mixer and edit in the mixer, then put it back in.
maybe. Um,
That's what I'm getting from this.
it's the only reasonable course of action in this particular scenario that I can see. Um, the other question that I would have is, okay, if you are changing the volume and pitch settings in the sound cue itself, are you basically setting the sound volume and pitch settings for all of them? So like, for example, if the sound wave you added has like a volume and pitch that's like 25% or something like that, like 0.25, right? um and add it into the sound cue, and the sound cue you just max it out. You put it at the 1, right? Is it taking like is it like taking that uh you know 25% and basically saying, hey, we're playing that 25% at at the 25%, right? So like if you were to like maybe lower the sound cues volume and pitch to say like 0.75, would you basically be changing the sound waves by 25% and like reducing that down by 25% or something like that? I don't know. I'm
I
not
don't know.
quite. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's really going on there. Or if you put it into a sound cue and the sound cue is at 1, does it change all the sound waves to 1? Like hey, you put in the sound wave that's at 0.25, right? But you put it in sound cue that has 1, and now all your sound waves have 1 for the volume and pitch. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing on that one. So um, but again, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, then still, what is the purpose of a sound cue versus a sound mixer? You know, that's the one thing that could, could really use a good explanation so far, and we're not getting that. Anything else do you want to add before I move on?
Mm, not yet. Let's move on.
Okay. Importing sounds. To import sounds in the Unreal Editor, do the following. Okay, blah blah blah. That's easy enough to do. We really don't need to. I mean, we've already done that, so
Yeah.
you know, we don't need to worry too much about that. So, creating a sound cue. To create a sound cue, do the following. We're adding a new for the content browser, new asset, other assets, click sounds, and then click sound cue. We'll type in the name of your new sound cue, which again doesn't really help us because we don't know what a sound cue does. So, so far again, you know, what is the purpose of this?
Mm,
But we'll move on, or do you have
yeah.
anything that
Let's move
you
on
want to
for
say?
now.
So opening the sound cue editor. You can open the sound cue editor by right-clicking the sound cue asset in the content browser and then clicking edit in the context menu that appears, or by double-clicking a sound cue asset. Okay. Um, hmm. Right. Double-clicking a sound cue asset. Um, I mean, if you don't have the sound cue editor open, then how would you know what is a sound cue asset? Hmm.
Hmm.
Did it show like a specific symbol for the sound cue, as a sound cue asset? I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, obviously the audio has a lot of um, you know, various things that you can see, that you can use, that has its own different icons and stuff like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was, but
Maybe.
yeah. Okay. Audio node graph. The audio node graph is located in the viewport panel. It displays the audio signal path from left to right with interconnected nodes representing audio control modules and audio files. The output node, which has an image of a speaker on it, represents the final output of audio as heard in-game and is always positioned furthest to the right in the signal path. Source audio files, sound waves, are always positioned furthest to the left in the signal path. Wires are used to connect nodes. To preview playback, use the play buttons located in the toolbar at the top of the sound cue editor window. For more information about the toolbar, see toolbar. Okay. Hmm. The play cue button plays the entire sound cue, and the play node button plays the sound from the selected node. If multiple nodes are selected, the play node button is grayed out and unavailable. Okay, so you can only play, one node at a time. You can't select multiple and play multiple. So, um, so if you want to have, uh, so I guess if you want to just have, uh, play those, you know, specific grouping of sounds, then you'd probably have to like create like maybe a temporary sound cue to do that.
No, you either play it all or you play one.
Yep.
No in between.
Well, what I'm saying is that in order to get um
No, well, you don't
like
necessarily need to
like
create another one. You could just disconnect the sound cues you don't want to listen and play it all. Like say you want to listen to 1 and 3 here in the example, just disconnect number 2 and only these two will be the one going into all the way to the speaker.
yeah, but at the same time that might be a little risky in that, maybe there's some additional information that is handled by, doing these connections or something like that.
All
And
it's
I
doing
want
is these are like audio tracks, and this is what it's telling that you do. Like this is all the behavior. Like 1, 2, and 3 are just audio tracks. Random, modulator, and looping, they're just behavior, and then there's the output.
yeah.
So all you need to do
No,
is just
I
remove one of the sounds, and the behavior is gonna take care of the rest.
yeah, what I'm saying though is that, there might be some settings in there or that might get reset if you like remove the output.
I don't
So
think it would,
what
because
I'm
you're
I'm
importing an already existing audio. Remember what it said. You can't edit nor modify audios in the sound cue like individually.
well, I'm not talking about modifying. Okay, I'm not talking about modifying uh the sounds themselves. I'm talking about like there might be something here saying, "Hey, I want the looping hand being done for uh like 5 seconds, right?" And then you cut it off. You want the looping to stop after 5 seconds. And if you like take that out of the path, you know, would it change that value or something along those lines? Would it kind of reset the value back to like say like default value is like a 1 second loop or something? That's why I'm like,
I don't
you
think
know
it would reset if you disconnect it. It would only reset if you modify it manually.
I would hope that that's the case. I'm just saying, I've known some programs that um that have kind of done things along those lines where it's like, hey, if you don't need me anymore, we're just gonna get rid of it altogether. It's like, no, so um, so it's one of those things where it's like, I'm assuming, I am, you know, uh, assuming, you know, that it does, work the way you're saying it does there, Blackheart. I'm just
Yeah,
worried
if it
that
would reset, there will be a lot of users complaining and requesting that you change.
probably, probably, um, the, but, either, uh, either way, um, what someone could do if they wanted to, like say you didn't want a modulator in, or you wanted to test out the sounds without the modulator, right? You can just create a different sound cue with the same audio files, the same random, the same looping, and going into an output. You can create like a secondary sound cue to just kind of test it out, you know, play it out, see if it's what you wanted, and then you can just kind of delete that sound cue afterwards if you really wanted to. You could do something like that as well. It doesn't, it shouldn't cause any, uh, it's already talked about how you can add the same audio files into multiple different sound cues. So you can do that if you wanted to. But obviously, it depends on uh, what you're kind of testing out and stuff like that. Like maybe you want like different sound waves at random to see like which one will be the best for this particular moment in time or whatever. I don't know. So that's what I'm saying. You could do that as a possibility. I'm not quite sure if it would be easier, especially if it's really simple to just kind of say, hey, I'm gonna take out the input, take out the output, and move change the you know um, change the path around or something like that. Like, hey, um, I want the three sounds going into modulator, then the output for the modulator goes into the input or random, blah blah blah. Right? You can really mix and match the blueprint there if you really wanted um, to kind of change things around a bit, but still, it's one of those. Hmm. But I don't know. Obviously, we'll see when we get more into making the game, and well, we have to figure out what the difference is between a sound cue and sound mixer is, but um, we'll have to figure that out a little bit later. So, of course, as always, if anybody's watching us right at this moment in time and you know these answers to our questions, then please feel free to speak up either right now in chat or on these video comment sections. We encourage any kind of additional information, you know, uh, or links to other videos that might explain it. Okay, Blackheart and I will be sharing information with each other, so um, yeah, right?
Right.
All right. All right. You can add an audio node by dragging it into the graph from the palette, right? Okay. And obviously there's quite a different amount of sound nodes there, so that's interesting. You can also add a node by right-clicking in the graph and choosing the node from the context menu that appears, right? Okay. So it's pretty much the exact same thing, it's just, if you don't have the palette open, then you can just do right-click and handle it that way. As with other node-based editors in the Unreal Editor, you can type text in the search box for a dynamic filter that lists the nodes that appears in the context menu. If you have a node in the graph, you can add a new node by dragging a wire off the existing node's pin and choosing a new node from the context menu that appears. Okay. So you put in the looping, for example. You click on output. You drag it out a little bit, and it will bring up a context menu for you to basically connect it to. So interesting.
Yeah. So in the probably sound cue reference explain what each one is.
Yeah, probably. Well, at least I would imagine the thank you editor might. Thank you editor ID might have a little bit more,
You
maybe.
the UI don't know. More like I think like reference would be the one telling us what is what. Hmm.
Hmm. They didn't mention the palette, but they don't really go through. They don't like go through the values contained in it. Hmm. Okay. Well, that's pretty much it for the editor.
Yeah.
They're just basically saying, hey, if you want, explanation of the nodes are available in the sound key reference. Well, I mean, it just says it right there.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So we'll go ahead and skip over the sound cue editor UI
Yeah.
because again, that's not really that useful for us. Um, so I'm not really seeing a major listing of uh information concerning the different nodes here. Oh my god. They have a link. Wait, okay. Hold on. Wait, I thought I clicked on that before. Okay, there it is. It's like, wait, what? I thought I clicked on the sign key reference, but it didn't initially bring it up, so I was like kind of scrolling through and really not really seeing anything in terms of the different nodes. So I was like, oh wait. So I guess I was just kind of confusing myself. or the link initially was kind of throwing me off by saying, okay, here's, we're gonna send you back to the SciQ editor or something like that for some reason. I don't know.
Hmm.
Okay. SciQ reference has a lot of information in there,
Yeah. I
like
guess this is
a
something that we
lot.
can look at as we experiment with it. Like if we're looking for something particular, then we look at the sound cue reference. If we make something with sound cue, which all I can do is make a guess of what the sound cue is based on its name mostly.
Yeah.
Like with the sound mixer and attenuation, you can like modify the sound itself. I feel like sound cue is like putting it like in some form of condition to trigger this set sound that's on a cue. Like say you walked into an area with a boss, and the sound cue would look at as a condition to trigger boss music, for example. You went through it on the mixer attenuation to make it sound the way you wanted it. Sound cue says, okay, this condition is met, play it like this. Maybe or a sound effect, like if you grab a melee weapon and start smacking something, the sound cue saying, okay, I detected something's being hit, cue in this sound. Like just from the name alone, it's like just because of that part where it says cue.
Well, okay. So according to this, which again, doesn't, again, it doesn't feel like you're wrong. Um, but again, this one doesn't sound like it's like covering all the information either. So in the SoundCube reference, like the very first two paragraphs that they have here, in Unreal Engine, a SoundCube is an audio object. that encapsulates complex sound design tasks in a node graph. Sound cues provide audio designers freedom to dynamically change parts of the sound effects design by arranging and modifying sound nodes, creating complex and interesting audio output. Sound nodes appear in the palette panel when the sound cue editor is open. When you add a node sound cue and select it, the properties for that node is displayed in the details panel. So uh, it definitely feels as though, you know, um, it's like, you're right in the fact of, like, the sound mixer is meant to kind of change the volume and the pitch and so on and so forth of the sounds associated with it. Um,
Sound cue
but the
could
sound
give a
cue,
behavior.
yeah, it might be like behavior, or might be something like it's like waiting for a specific trigger to happen. Um, maybe it um well, I mean, it just feels as though it might be just full on, like, hey, it's just kind of waiting for some kind of trigger, and then it will play all the associated sounds along with it, and then it may loop, it may not, but it doesn't. It sounds as though it's something like um, it's not changing um, not really changing a sound, but what the sound does. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like like here, one of the notes that you can add into the sound cue is called delay. I mean, yeah, you can put a delay into the sound file itself, um, or you might change, like, you create a song and you put like a slight spacing happen between, uh, like you might like stop the song for like a minute or something like that, you know, basically thinking this is when the dialogue's gonna happen, and then you can start the song right back up a minute later, right? But um, um, maybe there's something else going on during that time that they needed to, like, maybe expand out the delay longer. But you'd probably need like two separate soundtracks for that. Just split that first one into two, and then maybe you can do the sound cue editor where you play the first song. You have the second part of the song, but you have it go, like, one goes into the delay to be played, and then you have like the second part come in afterwards or something. I don't know. Again, I'm not sure like 100% what sound cues are all about, but it feels as though it's meant to do like a what the sound does.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't really have like any control about, like, I'm looking at the palette for Sound Road, right? And I'm not seeing reverb on there, for example.
I think reverb is part of the configuration for either attenuation or mixer.
And that's my point, is that the reverb is something that affects the sound itself, right? It changes up how the sound is heard. whereas the sound cue might be something along the lines of like it's just like changing how often you hear it or something like that, like looping, for example. You know, so maybe that's the difference between the two. Could really use confirmation. So if anybody knows for sure, then let us know about that. But that's where I'm kind of leaning towards now.
Hmm.
But I'm not, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah. Like, the only example from what I was thinking that I can think of, or at least the best one, would be, I don't know if you played Devil May Cry 1. Uh, while there's no enemies, there's like one set of like background sound and music. But as soon as an enemy enters, it like all the background changes and it puts in some heavy metal.
hmm
And I feel like that would be an example of a sound cue. Like that sound was cued in for as soon as an enemy enters, trigger this music now. Okay, enemy's dead. Okay, put back in the ambient. I feel like maybe that's kind of what sound cue would be doing.
Well, I would say yes and no. Yes, in the fact that you can probably like trigger the sound cue to play all the different like sounds and combat and so on and so forth. For when combat is initiated, like it says like, hey, we're gonna change up the music from before into something
Yeah,
new.
like using all the music, all the
Um,
enemy sounds, and things like that.
right. It kind of puts it all into like one different sound cue for that portion. But notice the fact that it doesn't. The sound cue editor has nothing concerning trigger. So
Maybe
it's
something
not
that
like,
falls in the programming part, maybe.
yeah. So something else most likely has to trigger the sound cue editor, but the sound cue editor holds on to all those like those type of sound effects, the music, when to play it, when not to play it, kind of
Like
thing.
sound cue can be tied to some form of programmable condition, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Um, so it's the only thing that I can think of. Again, I'm not 100% sure if I'm correct in that uh, assumption. I might be completely off base. I mean, I don't know. That's why, I look forward to anybody that knows you know, to give us some more information. But for right now, I think that's where we're gonna go ahead and close on down there, my friend.
Yeah.
Because
The reference part we
um,
can look at it whenever we're working with a sound cue if we are looking for something specific and we don't know what it is.
yeah. So um, so I think this is pretty much the end of our working with audio section. I
Yep.
think we're pretty much done with the audio. Obviously, we've generated a lot of questions. There's a lot of parts that we're not 100% sure about. We encourage anybody that is a sound engineer to please look through our videos and help us out on our lack of understanding in certain areas, or in a lot of areas in some cases. Um, but I think this is where we're gonna go ahead and kind of say like, hey, we're done with our audio portion of um, you know the Unreal Engine. Would you agree or
Yeah, I do agree.
okay? So so I'm just gonna basically say that hey, we've now covered the audio section and the like. So, so next time we are going to go into AIs. Now, again, I don't know where they have AIs in their documentation. I'm not really seeing anything that is like outright stating like, hey,
I
this is
find
for
AI components, but that's pretty much it.
Wait, where did you see the AI components?
I typed it on the search AI, and on the components section there is AI components. Hello there, Julian.
Okay, so I'm looking up artificial intelligence, and there is a section called making interactive experiences, and artificial intelligence is apparently underneath that. So here, let me
Okay, I found that part as well.
make so making interactive experiences and artificial intelligence. Okay, so we'll probably be covering that. Um, covering the artificial intelligence portion of this. Now, this interactive experiences might be something that we might want to look into a little bit more, maybe. Although, like using cameras might be something that we might want to consider. Um,
Maybe.
Networking multiplayer, eventually we'll probably want to try to do that at some point in time, but you and I both know that
Long way
that
off,
is a
if
mess.
we ever do on networking and multiplayer.
Well, I would recommend that we do at some point, maybe, depending on the game.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't outright say no to it. Okay. Um, you know, like some games might be really great on as a single player, but we might have people that are like going, "Boy, I really wish this could be multiplayer." Um, and we might get people like requesting that a lot for a game. So we may need to consider that at some point in time in the future. I'm not saying we're going to start it off like the very first game. No.
No, it's a long
That's
way
not
ahead.
something that that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, you know, um, it might be like the fifth game down the line or something like that. Who knows? You know, we might make our very first game. We're working on like our second and third game, and then we might be seeing like a lot of people coming up and saying, "Hey, can you do like a multiplayer for your first game?" If we get a lot of suggestions along those lines, then we
For
may
first game, no.
consider it.
For the first game,
Well,
no.
I'm well, I mean the initial idea is to make sure that we're not going to make our first game as multiplayer, right? But like when we're like 5 games in, right? We're already like made like multiple games and stuff like that. We're already kind of familiar with the Unreal Engine. We're knowing how to kind of, you know, make the process, work things out. And we get a lot of comments, like maybe someone sees the first game, purchases it, plays it out, and they're like going, man, would really love to see it as a multiplayer. Spreads it out, it starts blowing up and stuff like that as a single player. I'm just saying, hypothetically, okay. And we get a lot of comments in these, in the community, basically saying, could we get a multiplayer of this game? Okay. Then, you know, we may say there's no way. There's no way that we can figure out some way of making it multiplayer, and we'll let the audience know. But if we
Right.
can maybe figure out something,
Right. In the case of
then
multiplayer, we will have to consider it from the beginning, pretty much, because if we make something single player, adding the multiplayer later, it's gonna be a mess.
yeah, oh yeah, that is indeed um, something that we would have to kind of consider. Okay, think of it this way. There was uh, I told you about the game Kingdom, right? Did
I
I
I think I have
did
one
I
of them, Kingdom Classic.
did you ever play Kingdom? You know the that or do you know about Kingdom where it's basically like that one? It's a game where you're playing a king or queen on a horse trying to rebuild their kingdom.
Yeah,
It's
I've
very
seen the footage of
pixelated.
it. I haven't played it. I have Kingdom Classic, but I have seen footage of it.
Okay. Um, there was one streamer that was playing it. Okay, and and he like played their second version of it, and then he was like, he kept on talking about how he would love to have gotten and get his wife into the game, or play the play the game with his wife, right? And you know the game designers heard that, saw that, and they were like, on okay, how can we make this game into a multiplayer? And then they created the game Kingdom Two Crowns, which is, basically the same style game, but now with two players
Yeah,
in it.
yeah, they built it from the
So,
ground up with the intention for multiplayer.
right, I mean, they obviously, did the same style game, but now they're trying to, and they added, they built in the multiplayer aspect of it. So, and tried to work around the ideas of how they could actually make it a multiplayer and so on and so forth. But that's something that could happen with our games. Okay, just bear that in mind. You know, now I'm not gonna say like, hey, let's go ahead and go back to our old code and change it all, to include multiplayer. No,
No, that's
probably not.
that'll just
Um,
break the game.
Most likely, yes. Well, I mean, we'd have to do a real, we'd have to, first we'd have to branch it, so we'd leave the original alone to continue being purchased and stuff like that if people wanted to purchase it, right? And then once we make all the necessary changes to to add the multiplayer aspect in it, then we could put it right back in place of the first to add in that multiplayer um, scenario. So now, whenever people download the game for the very first time, they have the multiplayer aspect of it. But let's face it, that's going to be a lot of work and a lot of headache and stuff like that.
A
So,
lot of
um,
debugging, a lot of bug repairs.
oh yeah, no, no, those
Yeah,
that's without question. If we're adding anything with like networking and multiplayer, we're definitely going to need to, you know,
yeah. There's also
do a lot more test.
balancing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it. All these things we're going to be doing anyway with single player as well. It's just
Yeah, but with
with
multiplayer, it's just
multiplayer.
a nightmare to do it.
Yeah, I know. But at the same time, nowadays you can actually you can ask people to kind of do it for you too. Okay, get some streamers to do it. We can do it ourselves. Like if we're like, okay, here's our game. We just tried to introduce multiplayer into it. Black and I are gonna test it out, see if it works. See, write down all of our problems with it. See, and see what we could do with it, right? You know, but at the same time, if we can get others to do the same, then you know, then that might also be a possibility. So, so yeah. But obviously, that's way down the
Yeah.
line. but but I see, networking multiplayer is part of this making interactive experiences. Um, so this is interesting. I don't know if we're going to be um in my listing of topics that you know we were going to cover for Unreal. Um, I didn't really cover very much in the interactive experiences, but I know how um, how useful some of these can be as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, physics alone, for example.
Yep. A
Um,
very important part of the game.
yeah. Well, the most part, you know. I'm gonna assume that, you have collision. Yeah, collision in physics.
Yep.
So collision is pretty much essential for any game,
Yeah.
you know. So, um, for the most part, well, I guess it depends on the game.
Yeah, like if you do you want something to be movable, then yeah, collision and physics will go hand in hand. But if it was something gonna be
Yeah,
static, like there's a random box there, but even if you walk into it, nothing's gonna happen. It's just collision alone.
yeah. Well, I mean, like if we do like a simple game like find a different style game where it's like you just click on the the image that is different from the other image or something like that. That's not really collision. So
No.
you know that's a puzzle game and stuff like that. So it's like obviously there's really no need for a collision in that style game, for example. So it depends, but yeah. But I mean, collision is still pretty still something that we should probably cover, probably.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and write down making interactive experiences. Maybe I'll put that after AIs in this list, and we'll kind of go over that a little bit more. Although physics is part of the making interactive experiences, so that's kind of covered underneath that. Um, it's also talking about input,
Hmm.
which is also another one that I think I mentioned in my listing as well. I think game controls, yeah. So that's kind of covered under making interactive experiences. So maybe we should just cover making interactive experiences like fully.
Yeah, I'd say in its entirety we will have to cover it. There's plenty there that's gonna be important, I feel.
Yeah. Now, obviously, there's some things that it's like, I don't think that we should really cover it immediately. Um, but we may want to come back to it later, such as vehicles. You know.
Yeah, vehicles, and we can skip until we actually are going to implement vehicles, if
Yeah.
ever.
Well, yeah. Um, if ever, yeah. The possibility might happen sometime down the future. Who knows? I'm not gonna say it, it's not. It's never a It's not gonna be a possible at all. We're never gonna do it. But you know, but yeah. Using dialogue, voices, and waves. I mean, that's probably not gonna happen for a while. Um, so I mean, unless you and I start doing some voice acting ourselves, and well,
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind doing it. I mean, just look at my Shovel Knight stuff. I kind of went nuts a bit there with the voice acting. Plague Knight's still my favorite. I like being the mad scientist there.
I'll get him. But we might want to wait off on the dialogue voices and waves or something like that. For example, there's some things that it's like, okay, I can definitely see us using, but at the same time, there's things here that it's like, maybe not so much. Like force feedback, vibration function. The only time that I would ever see that is if you're doing it for like platforms. Now they're saying like you can include it for the iOS or Android.
Yeah, because of the Rumble system.
But I would, me personally, I would hate to have my phone vibrate. That's just, I don't know, feels. I mean, I don't necessarily like, vibration functions in my controllers anyway. Yeah. But that's me.
Yeah, this will be for when we get into developing for consoles, maybe.
Maybe.
Not so
but
much
again,
PC.
The problem with designing for consoles is that you need to follow their specific rules for making the game and for that particular console. If you're doing something for Nintendo, if you're doing something for PlayStation, if you're doing something for Xbox, they have very specific rules that you have to follow in order to get the game out on any one of those particular consoles. And even then, that might require a lot of money to even allow for them to, for us to even, be allowed to sell those games out on those consoles too. So probably not gonna happen right away.
No.
Unless we somehow like blow up or something like that, right? It could happen.
At some point, maybe.
I'm not gonna say that it's never gonna happen, but sometimes it just might be interesting luck at some point.
Yeah.
Like
Cave Story.
Yeah. Cave Story. I mean, Among Us is another one that blew up, and now granted, Among Us was designed for multiplayer.
Yeah, it was built or fully for multiplayer in mind.
Yeah.
They started it just like that.
Yeah. But because some people loved it so much, and kept on playing it and stuff like that, it got it then really cascaded, especially during the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Everybody started playing Among Us during the pandemic. But the thing was that Among Us had been out for like 2 years prior to it really blowing up.
The streamers kind of put it in the map.
Yeah, streamers definitely put it on the map. And I think at the time they were actually considering doing a Among Us 2. uh, they were kind of kicking around the idea of like, hey, we need to see about making this into, let's think of ways to make this Among Us 2 or something like that to be sold. And then Among Us blew up, and there it went. So
You just say, okay, now let's just make Among Us bigger, and that's it.
they pretty much they started like, I mean, they pretty much opened it up for like mods. I think they allowed for modifications to
Yeah,
be
they
added
added more
in.
maps and they added modding functionality. I think they even made their
Yeah,
modding tool. I think.
yeah. And after that, it just also, it continued to blow up even more, right? Because then the modding community came in and they were like going, oh, hey, this is interesting. Let's see what we could do with this. And it just, took off from there. So, which obviously the crew that are working on Among Us, they're like going, okay, these are interesting concepts. Let's, maybe we'll take some of this. So we'll add it officially into the game. Um, but yeah. All right. Let's go ahead and end it so you can get the heck out of here, get yourself something to eat, and you
Yep.
can go and play your game or play Genshin later on tonight.
Yep.
And I can move on to playing some Lego. So,
All right.
so, um,
Yep.
all right, man.
All right.
We'll go into our respective and say our goodbyes. So,
Yep. Okay.
I'll catch you later. Catch you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, there, I'm out of the stage, and yeah. I'm gonna close down this stream and go get myself something to eat. I'll be back in roughly an hour or so for some Genshin Impact, where I'm only gonna focus on getting some Primogens. So, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this stream, and if you maybe can understand something that we looked at today or any of our previous streams that we didn't understand or maybe we understood it wrong, leave it down in the comments below. Every little bit of information helps, and maybe even link someone that explains it with examples. That would be even better. Like, we will definitely look at it and talk about it next stream. So, until then, I hope you really enjoyed this stream, and I hope to see you all in a little bit. Bye bye for now.